Marilyn Monroe's most famous lovers, truth versus rumor. James Doherty. She finally found some stability with a long-term foster family when she was in her teens. But when the family was forced to relocate from California and couldn't legally take Norma with him, she chose to marry her 21-year-old neighbor, James Doherty, rather than return to the system. Norma dropped out of high school to focus on being a wife, but after her Marine husband left for a 2-year overseas tour, she consented to work as a model against her husband's desires. It wasn't long before Norma Jean, then going by Jean Norman, caught the eyes of studio executives like 20th Century Fox's Darryl F. Zanuck, who signed her to a 6-month contract in 1946. Within a month of her signing, she divorced her husband, with whom she had become estranged, and entered the wild world of Hollywood under her studio-chosen name, Marilyn Monroe. Natasha Tess. When she accepted a temporary deal with Columbia Pictures in 1948, she met Tess, her favorite drama coach. Monroe's reliance on Tess developed to the point that she refused to shoot scenes without her coach present. Despite the fact that the nature of their relationship is unknown, Tess was openly antagonistic to Monroe's male admirers, particularly Joe Dimaggio. She was a wonderful instructor, but she was envious of the men I saw. She mistook me for my spouse. Monroe once expressed her admiration for her teacher. In 1956, they finally separated ways. A man who once kissed me claimed it was highly plausible that I was a lesbian because plainly I had no response to males, meaning him, she explained. Milton Berle. Monroe and the comedian met on the set of Ladies of the Chorus in 1948. Berle claimed to have had a brief affair with actress Adele Jurgens, despite the fact that he was formally seeing her at the time. Berle co-starred in the 1960 film Let's Make Love with Monroe as himself, becoming the first television superstar, and, according to Truman Capote and industry folklore, notably well-endowed. In his memoirs, he claimed, Marilyn was on the rise in Hollywood, yet there was nothing cheap about her. She wasn't one of the town's starlets who you fed one supper and then tossed in the sack. She didn't know who she was or what she was worth, but she knew she was valuable. She held herself in high regard. Marilyn was a lady, says the narrator. Joe Dimaggio. Monroe had established herself as a genuine celebrity and sex symbol by the early 1950s, making her one of Hollywood's most eligible bachelorettes, but no one sparked her interest more than New York Yankees center fielder Joe Dimaggio. Despite her worries about dating him, they bonded over their same humble beginnings and formed an almost instantaneous friendship. According to Dimaggio, their physical desire was like the gods were fighting. There were thunderclouds and lightning over us. The two divorcees married in a courthouse on January 4, 1954, after failing to find a church to marry them. Monroe, a 40-year-old athlete, was looking forward to semi-retirement and starting a family, while Dimaggio, a 40-year-old athlete, was not ready to give up her profession entirely. Her professional obligations were a cause of conflict in their marriage almost as soon as it began, when she was sent out of Japan during their honeymoon to perform for troops stationed in Korea. Monroe's sex icon status, which had fascinated him initially, became a source of resentment for Dimaggio. When he saw her stand for the now iconic subway great scene in The 7-Year Itch, he purportedly erupted in rage, allegedly to the point of physical violence, despite the fact that it was rather minor compared to other parts in the film. Monroe had been supposedly abused by Dimaggio before, and their marriage ended after only 9 months of less than happily ever after, but she eventually forgave him despite his heinous brutality. They grew closer as friends rather than husband and wife, and Dimaggio remained a close confidant to the end. In fact, he was the one who retrieved her body and prepared her burial after her tragic overdose in 1962. He even sent flowers to her grave 3 times a week for the next 20 years. Arthur Miller. After her divorce from Joe Dimaggio, Monroe dated a number of men, including Marlon Brando, before falling in love with genius playwright Arthur Miller, who wrote All My Sons and Death of a Salesman. Miller was a polarizing figure in the mid-1950s, with his Tony Award-winning play The Crucible, which was purportedly about the Salem witch trials but was actually a not-so-subtle critique of anti-communist McCarthyism. The FBI was looking into Monroe's actions just because she was dating him. It wasn't all heavy with Miller and Monroe, either. According to one story, when Miller decided it was time for Monroe to meet his parents, he took her to his mother's little Brooklyn apartment. When Monroe excused herself to the restroom, she realized the little apartment had paper-thin walls, so she turned on the sink tap to drown out the sound of her activities, not wanting a woman she'd just met and planned to impress to hear her most private bodily functions. When Miller called the next day to ask about his girlfriend, his mother responded, "She's a nice, wonderful girl, but she pisses like a racehorse." Monroe and Miller married in a religious ceremony on July 1, 1956, 2 days after their civil wedding at a courthouse, because Monroe's position as a two-time divorcee was more acceptable to the Jewish faith. Monroe struggled to conceive and stay pregnant, suffering from several miscarriages and other issues owing to endometriosis and her general worsening health, while her career thrived with films like Some Like It Hot. Miller cast her in his film The Misfits, but her addiction to barbiturates caused their marriage to fall apart, and they divorced not long after filming Wrapped in 1961. The Kennedys. Between her divorce from Miller and her death in 1962, Monroe is claimed to have had affairs with both President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Robert, after singing Happy Birthday to the President at a ceremony on May 19, 1962. Despite the lack of evidence, some fans believe Monroe's overdose was staged by the Kennedy administration in order to prevent her from disclosing the affair. The main perpetrators of this conspiracy theory, Frank Capel and Jack Clemens, were charged with conspiracy for libel, and Capel pled guilty in 1965. Monroe died of a barbiturates overdose alone in her bed on August 4, 1962. Because of her persistent difficulties with depression and painful procedures to manage her endometriosis, among other health conditions, the Los Angeles County coroner believed it was a purposeful suicide rather than an accidental overdose. Following the discovery of several conspiracy theories over the years, the police reopened their investigation into Monroe's death, determining in 1982 that it was unquestionably a suicide. At the time, she was 36 years old,